My wife cheated with her boss and stole $200, $0 from our joint account before leaving me for him, only for me to discover she's secretly been planning to take everything, including the house worth $500, $0 in a messy legal battle. Now I don't know if I'll ever get it all back. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife turned out to be a complete nightmare. Honestly, I thought we had a pretty solid life. 2 kids, a nice house, decent jobs. We were far from perfect, but I believed we had something real. That was until I started noticing little things that didn't add up, and then out of nowhere, everything exploded in my face. It all started about 3 months ago. Had been acting a little distant, more irritable, snapping at me over small things. She'd come home late from work more often, claiming she had late meetings or client dinners, but her stories started to sound more and more fabricated. She'd be on her phone constantly, texting or scrolling through apps I didn't recognize. She'd clear her history, and I didn't think much of it at first. People do that all the time, right? But then I noticed her phone was always locked, even when she was around me, which was unusual because she used to leave it lying around. One day, I decided to do a little digging. I wasn't snooping out of suspicion alone. I just wanted to see if she was hiding something from me. I knew her passwords. She was terrible at changing them, and I pulled up her phone when she went to the store. That's when I saw the messages. There were texts between her and her boss, Mark, that were definitely not about work. Flirty, suggestive, even downright inappropriate at times. They were talking about meeting up after hours, and there were comments about how they couldn't keep their hands off each other anymore. My stomach sank. I mean, I knew had a bit of a bitchy streak, and she loved to lie her way out of things, but this was next level. I also noticed money was disappearing from our joint account. Small amounts at first, 500, then $1, $0. I brushed it off as some kind of mistake or maybe a tax payment I forgot about. But then I saw a transfer of $200, $0 to an unknown account. That's when the alarm bells went off. I called the bank and they confirmed the transfer. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, with her big mouth and her constant lies, had been stealing from us. And she was planning to leave me for Mark, her boss, who was a sleazy, smooth-talking guy in his late 40s. The worst part, I found out she had been secretly planning to take everything, our house, worth $500,000, the cars, everything. This wasn't some spontaneous affair. She had been scheming for months. I started digging deeper, trying to piece it all together. Every clue pointed to one thing: was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. She'd been pretending to be the perfect wife, but behind closed doors she'd been planning her escape, using me as her bank and her fall guy. I was furious, devastated, and betrayed all at once. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face, cheat on me, steal from us, and then walk away like she hadn't done anything wrong? It was like I had been living with a stranger the whole time. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut every time I looked at her, knowing she'd been sleeping with her boss, stealing our money, and plotting to take everything I cared about. The sense of betrayal is something I can't even put into words. It's like my whole world was crashing down around me, and I didn't even see it coming. The confrontation happened unexpectedly, and I swear I never planned it that way. I wanted to catch her in the act, maybe get some proof, but I didn't expect her to come home that evening and tear into me like a storm. She was furious when I confronted her, denying everything with her typical bitchy smirk, twisting her words, acting innocent. She looked me right in the eyes and told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that Mark was just a friend, and that I was overreacting because I was insecure and jealous. She had this way of twisting every situation to make me look like the bad guy. "You're always accusing me of stuff," she snapped, her voice high-pitched with that bitchy edge she always used when she was lying. "You think I'd cheat on you? Do you even trust me?" Her eyes flashed with anger, but I saw the flicker of guilt behind them. She knew she was caught, but she was trying to spin it into my fault. I didn't back down. I pulled out the evidence on my phone, the messages, the bank statements, everything. Her face paled for a second. That's when she started to cry, but it wasn't genuine. It was that crocodile kind of crying, the kind she always used when she was trying to manipulate someone. "You don't understand," she said, voice trembling. "Mark been helping me with my career, okay? He's just a mentor. You're blowing this out of proportion. You're just insecure and jealous like always." I lost it then. The anger bubbled over and I told her she could stop lying. I told her I knew about the affair, the money, the plans to leave me. Her eyes widened and she looked like she was about to explode. She tried to deny everything, but I'd seen enough. The proof was right in front of me, and I wasn't going to be played anymore. That's when she started to get really bitchy, her voice rising, accusing me of controlling her, of being a terrible husband, and of not trusting her. She said I was paranoid, that I was making everything up because I was insecure and afraid of losing her. The confrontation was ugly. We yelled at each other for what felt like hours. She threw in my face that I wasn't enough, that she needed more, that I was boring and predictable. Her lies kept coming out, and I realized she had been planning this whole thing for months. She'd been sneaking around, lying, stealing, doing everything she could to cut me out of her life and take what she wanted. I felt like I was losing my mind, like I couldn't believe I'd been married to someone so manipulative and selfish. And then, just as I thought she might try to pack her bags and leave that night, she did something I didn't expect. She looked at me with that cold, bitchy smile, like she enjoyed the chaos she'd created, and said, "You're not going to do anything. You're too weak. I've already taken what I want. We're done." That's when I realized she'd been planning her escape all along, and I was just a stop along her way to some new life with her boss. I was furious, crushed, and feeling completely helpless. I knew then that this wasn't just about her cheating or stealing money. It was about her trying to destroy everything I cared about, and I had to figure out what to do next. After that confrontation, everything changed. I felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. My mind was racing, trying to process how someone I loved could turn into such a cold, calculating liar. The house suddenly felt too quiet, too empty, even though she was still there, sitting across from me with that bitchy smirk. I knew I couldn't just let this go. I had to think about what to do next, how to protect myself, my kids, and whatever was left of what we had. I started digging even deeper into her phone and the bank records. I couldn't believe what I found. She transferred more money, another 100 grand, into an account she'd kept hidden. She'd been planning her escape for months, maybe even longer. She'd been funneling money into different accounts, hiding her tracks. I found receipts for lawyers, real estate agents, even a rental agreement for a new apartment. She was serious about leaving, about taking everything I had worked for all these years. The house, worth $500,000, was her next target. I knew she had a lawyer lined up, ready to fight me for everything. The emotional toll was brutal. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, sweating, heart pounding, thinking about what she'd done. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I could have been so blind. I loved her, or at least I thought I did, but now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish bitch who'd been planning her escape while pretending to be the perfect wife. I was angry at myself for trusting her, for believing she loved me, and angry at her for lying so effortlessly. But I also knew I had to be smart. I couldn't just storm into a lawyer's office and start throwing accusations. I needed proof, concrete evidence. I started documenting everything, saving all the bank statements, copying messages, taking screenshots of her plans. I even hired a private investigator to follow her, just to confirm she was really moving forward with her plans. It was painful, but I had to be sure. If I was going to fight her in court, I needed to be prepared. And I was going to fight, not just for the house, but for my dignity, for my reputation, for my sanity. In the meantime, I kept my distance. I didn't want her to see how much she was affecting me. I pretended everything was fine, even though inside I was a wreck. I kept my focus on the legal side of things, trying to figure out how to stop her from taking everything. She kept lying, kept spinning stories about how she was just trying to find herself, how she needed space, but I saw through it. It was all about her getting what she wanted, my house, my money, my life. I also started reaching out to friends and family, trying to get support. I didn't want to go through this alone. Some of them told me I deserved better, that I should fight to keep what's mine. Others warned me she was dangerous, that she'd do anything to get her way. I didn't know what to believe, only that I had to stay strong. I realized that I'd been living in a kind of fog, trusting her blindly. Now everything was clear. She was a liar, a thief, and a user. I just hoped I could come out of this with some shred of what I once had. The legal battle started pretty much immediately after I gathered enough evidence to convince a lawyer to take my case. I never thought I'd be in this position, fighting for my own house, my own marriage, against someone I once loved. But made her choice, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything without a fight. She was already deep into her lies, trying to spin the story that I was the one at fault, that I was paranoid and controlling. That bitch had a talent for twisting things, but I had enough proof to shut her down. The first thing I did was file for an emergency injunction to freeze the assets and prevent her from selling or transferring the house. That was a huge relief because I knew she was already talking to a real estate agent and planning to list the house. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace all the money she'd stolen, every dollar, every transfer, every hidden account. It was shocking how much she'd managed to hide, but I was determined to expose it all. Meanwhile, her attitude got even more bitchy. She started throwing tantrums, yelling at me, calling me insecure and jealous again, but I didn't care anymore. I knew what she was up to. She'd even gone as far as trying to manipulate the kids, telling them I was mean and controlling, just to turn them against me. That was the lowest she'd gone. I made sure to keep the kids out of it, but I was furious that she'd stooped so low. The court hearings were intense. Showed up dressed like she was going to a fashion show, acting sweet and innocent, claiming she was the victim. She lied through her teeth about how she only wanted to leave peacefully, how I was abusive and possessive, trying to paint herself as the innocent party. But I had the evidence, texts, bank statements, the lawyer's reports, and I laid it all out. The judge was not stupid. He saw through her act, and I managed to get a temporary order to prevent her from selling the house or withdrawing more money. Throughout all this, I was flooded with a mix of emotions: anger, betrayal, heartbreak. I felt like I'd been punched again and again. The woman I'd trusted with everything was now just a stranger, a thief, a liar. I couldn't believe I'd been blind for so long. Her bitchy attitude, her constant lies, her manipulative ways, they all added up to one thing. She'd been planning this for months, maybe years. And now she was trying to destroy what little stability I had left. I started to realize how much I'd lost, not just the house, but my sense of security, my trust in people, even in myself. I kept replaying all the moments when she'd lied to my face, all the times she'd sneaked around behind my back. It was a lot to process, but I knew I had to stay strong. I was determined to fight for what was rightfully mine, even if it meant going to court and battling her every step of the way. I wasn't about to let her walk away with everything she'd stolen, especially not the house that was supposed to be our family home. The court battles dragged on for months, and every day felt like a new assault on my sanity. The lawyer was relentless, trying to paint her as a victim, and me as some controlling husband who was just jealous of her success. She kept lying, spinning stories about how she needed to start fresh, and how I was abusive, even though I had no record of any violence or mistreatment. But the evidence was on my side, and I made sure to keep everything documented: texts, emails, bank statements, even her secret plans to sell the house. Meanwhile, attitude grew even more bitchy and manipulative. She was furious that I was fighting back so hard. She'd call me names, accuse me of being a terrible husband, and try to undermine me in front of the judge. She'd call me paranoid, controlling, emotionally unstable, anything to make herself look innocent. But I knew better. I knew her game. She was a liar, a thief, and a user. And she was trying to turn my own kids against me, telling them I was mean and abusive, just so she could get the upper hand. The most shocking moment came during the final hearing. Sat there trying to look innocent, but I could see the contempt in her eyes. She'd already started planning her new life with Mark, her boss, who was waiting in the wings, ready to swoop in and take everything. She'd even hired a lawyer to fight me for the house, claiming she deserved half because she'd contributed to the mortgage, even though I had paid every penny for years. She kept insisting I was the one causing trouble, that I was trying to ruin her new life, but the judge wasn't buying her lies. What really hit me hard was when the judge finally ruled in my favor. He granted me full control of the house, froze her assets, and ordered her to stay away from me and the kids until the legal mess was sorted out. That felt like a small victory, but it came with a bitter taste. I knew this wasn't over, was still scheming, still planning her next move. She'd already started packing her bags, whispering to the kids she was going on a little trip, but I knew better. She was leaving and she was taking everything, my house, my money, my stability. I also learned that she'd been secretly working with her lawyer to try and get the house under her name before the court decision. She'd even hired fake witnesses to testify that I was abusive, stuff she'd come up with on her own. But I had the evidence to counter every lie. I realized then that bitchiness wasn't just a personality trait. It was a weapon she used to manipulate and control. I felt a mix of anger and sadness, knowing that she'd betrayed me so completely just for her own selfish gain. Despite everything, I refused to give up. I was exhausted, broken at times, but I knew I had to keep fighting for my kids, for what was rightfully mine, and for my own sanity. I'd been by her lies, her schemes, her total lack of remorse. But I also learned that sometimes you have to stand your ground even when everything seems lost. And I was determined that in the end I'd get some kind of justice, and maybe even rebuild what I'd lost. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole nightmare has changed me. This betrayal cut deep, more than I ever thought possible. I thought I knew her, trusted her completely, and she turned out to be the biggest liar and thief I've ever met. Losing the house, seeing her walk away with everything she'd stolen, was like losing a part of myself. But I learned a lot from this mess, especially about trust, deception, and the importance of standing up for what's right. The final court ruling was a relief in a way, but it didn't erase the pain. Still, I'm grateful I fought for what was mine. The house is now under my name, and I've started focusing on rebuilding my life, slowly, painfully, but surely. I've cut out all the toxic people, and I'm trying to focus on my kids and my own well-being. The process has made me realize how important it is to be vigilant, to trust but verify, and to never ignore the signs of manipulation or dishonesty. If I could give anyone in a similar situation some advice, it would be this: don't ignore the red flags. When someone starts hiding things, lying more often, or acting differently, pay attention. Trust your instincts, and if you find yourself in a situation where your partner is stealing from you or betraying your trust, fight back with everything you've got. Document everything. Get legal help. Don't let them manipulate you into thinking it's your fault or that you're overreacting. Most of all, don't let betrayal define you. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's humiliating. But in the end, standing up for yourself matters more than anyone's lies or schemes. I've learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to realize what truly matters: your integrity, your sanity, and your right to a fresh start. Took a lot from me, but she didn't take away my ability to rebuild. And that's what I plan to do, one step at a time.